everyone, welcome to Taking Care of Business. I'm Prue from BIEDO and I'm joined by Vicki from Business Leap Bundaberg. Thanks so much for joining us today. If you've been following the Taking Care of Business program, you would know that we actually do a lot of these free workshops in person. We're changing things up a little bit for this one. What we've found is talking with businesses, small businesses around the region, everyone's tired. Everyone's zoomed out, everyone's evented out, and even though we switched up venues and times and tried to do things before work, after work, lunch breaks, people just can't get to these sessions. So we're trying things a little bit differently with an online workshop today or webinar, and we are actually live. So you can tap away with any questions that you have to ask of Vicki, and she will answer in real time. So drop your comments below, and Vicki will come back to you with a response. So before we get started, just a huge shout out to North Burnett Regional Council who have made these presentations possible. Yeah, over to you, Vicki. We're talking break-even point for your business today.
Here we are.
What is it? Not your break-even point. No, your break-even point.
No, not at all.
Your break-even
point. It's really about how much money do you need to open every single day, open that front door of your business or whatever your business is. How much does it cost you every single day just to not make a profit and not make a loss? So it's we'll go through all of those points of how to actually find what that is, and we'll give you demonstration on where to find that within your profit and losses, and show you exactly how you can determine what is your break-even point to open your doors every day.
So that's a really vital step in the business. And I'd imagine that with so many people wanting to start their own business, you know, entrepreneurs and startups have become the buzzword in business.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is some groundwork that people really need to do before they actually start, and they need to crunch those numbers.
Yeah, I would say it's as important as knowing who your market is, or even if you even have a market. Because at the end of the day, you might have a market and you might have the money to start, but are you going to have the money to continue? Because without knowing your break-even point, you can very easily run into trouble and be closing those doors before you know it, because you haven't worked out the costs and those factors of what creates the expenses in the background to determine that figure.
Absolutely, and that's the last thing that we want to see. We are all about encouraging small businesses to start and thrive in the Burnett Inland. So we don't want to see people closing their doors.
No, not at all.
So tell us a little bit about Business Leap and the service that you provide, and then how people can actually work out their break-even point for their business.
Well, the Business Leap program is funded by the Australian government, so all our services are offered free. Even our educational side of it, which we love to do, because with education we can build knowledge and build a better business. So for us, and the relationship that we've built with BIEDO, we're offering that education and knowledge, so you have a better chance of surviving in that business that you're either growing, starting, or you may have been in business for a long time.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know what that break-even point is, even in businesses they've been going a long time, and that's evolutionary and can change.
So that's interesting. So there would be businesses out there that would have zero idea, that may have been around for 20, 30 more years, but don't actually know what that break-even point is. Wow, that's interesting.
It is, and it's something, you know, we've got to be mindful too that people don't feel silly about not knowing. Because, you know, when you've got a dream and a passion about starting a business, it's really about getting started, and I'm so excited and I'm so happy. Yeah. But there's those basic steps which get a little bit forgotten because other things take priority. And so it's not until a later date that you might realise, holy cow, how am I going to actually make this work?
Absolutely.
That you seek out that advice.
And that's what I love about the relationship that we have with Vicki and the Business Leap team, is that there is no silly question.
No.
You don't become a business owner just by hanging a shingle out on the door. You don't get that business acumen through osmosis. There's no silly questions. Vicki, through this service, will actually come and meet with you in your business one-on-one, totally free of charge. It's phenomenal. Yeah. And Vicki's got what, something like 20 years of...
I've got about 3 decades of business knowledge in my head. Yeah.
So you're getting quality business information and experience for free, specific to your business. So it's just an incredible service. So I've been in business for I'm starting out, or I've been successful for a couple of years. Yeah. Why do I need to know what my break-even point is, and where do I start?
Okay, well, I mean, the reason we need to know that is that you've got expenses. You've got legitimate everyday expenses that keep reoccurring, and you need to know exactly what those reoccurring expenses are to know, okay, I'm selling a widget. How many widgets do I need to sell, or how many customers do I need to have to give me that idea of just to pay the expenses? That's before you even get paid. You've got your rent, you've got your electricity, you've got your gas, you've got your marketing. All of those things form part of what we're going to go through today. So I think what we'll do is we'll get started on the presentation to give you a bit of an idea, and we'll go through as we go along how you determine those factors and where to get the information from within your own business.
Yeah, and as we go through, as I mentioned, feel free to type away any comments or questions you have of Vicki, and she will reply in the comments section below. And you'll find all the contact details if you want to touch base with Vicki, or if you want to touch base with BIEDO. All of those contact details will be below. So, all right, go for it. Break-even point for your business.
Okay. So do you know what a break-even point is? Well, we've just been through that a little bit, so we'll jump through this. It'll tell you how much money you'll need to open your doors every single day before you draw a wage. Some may say, why didn't my accountant give me this information? Well, the truth is that unless you ask the question, most accountants won't really go through that with you. It's no disrespect to accountants. It's really arming you with the information to ask the accountant. They can go through that with you, and they can give you that information and help you out with that. But unless you actually ask, they don't even think about that, because they do these things every single day. In their mind, they think you know.
Yes.
And that's one of the biggest failings is when we all know something or get used to doing something, we just think everybody knows.
Yeah.
But the truth is that we don't.
Yeah.
And
that's why I think it is so important just to pick up the phone or jump on the email or jump on Facebook and reach out to someone like yourself or someone like BIEDO. Especially I think, with everything that's going on in the landscape at the moment with COVID and travel restrictions and whatnot, it's okay to, if you're feeling a little bit, anxious about your business and the future, just reach out. There's support there. So if you don't ask, you don't know. So,
no, that's right.
Yeah.
So your break-even point is vital to your business to determine income requirements and puts a focus on what many businesses and owners neglect, and that's the cost of running that business.
Yeah. And I'd imagine with that, the cost of running your business, that would be obviously an ever-changing beast, wouldn't it? Like with inflation and things like that. And how often do you
really need, and that's a little bit of part of what the presentation will go through, you really need to be keeping abreast of that. I would say on a quarterly basis, and then that'll depend on the business structure that you've got or what it is. Yeah. If it's manufacturing, it's a little bit different. If it's a cafe or a coffee shop, I myself, when I had those type of businesses, I would be checking those types of things monthly.
Right.
Because, and I'll go through some of that with you here, to show you how those costs can actually run away, and all of a sudden you realise that the bottom line's got nothing left in it.
Yeah.
So break-even point, the number of sales or revenue that must be generated in order to equal its expenses. In other words, it's the point at which the company neither makes a profit or suffers a loss.
Right.
So it's really that even keel.
Yeah.
The costs and benefits are precisely balanced. And if the business revenue is below the break-even point, then the company's operating at a loss. And if it's above, then it's operating at a profit. So it's really, you can see why those numbers need to be looked at and kept track of constantly.
Yeah.
Break-even is one of those vital numbers that can mean success or failure to a small business. If you're breaking even, your income's equal to cost. And I will repeat myself quite a bit here, but I cannot stress enough why we go through this and constantly repeat ourselves. You have no profit or loss at this point, but above the break-even point, every dollar of sales is pure profit.
Yeah.
As your business plans for financing, knowing your overall company break-even point can help you make a case for business loans.
Right.
So how much do I need to actually, if I'm wanting a loan and to grow my business, how much do I need to increase my sales or decrease my costs to actually give me more money to pay that loan back?
Yeah.
And that'll be something that the banks and or the finance companies will be really scrutinising.
More so than ever.
Absolutely. There's different forms of break-even points as well in business, and it can break even of just opening the doors, which what I've been talking about, and it can also be the break-even points of sales. So you might have a widget. How much does it cost you to make those widgets? Singularly or multipliable?
Right.
But that's a little bit of a different way of looking at things. For this purpose, we're talking more about opening the doors because my area of expertise is or not expertise really, but it's more about the startups and really working out what are those costs in opening those doors. So that's what we're concentrating on. It doesn't mean I can't help you with information on the other, but you know, just be aware that that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
So breaking even the sales can give the profit of a certain stock item to determine what you'll need to sell dollar-wise and how many items it will make to make a profit. So that's what that is. Opening your doors is what we're concentrating here. It can show you much extra, sorry about that, it can show you how much extra you need to turn over to ensure you have a profit, maybe even to pay yourself if there's enough left over.
And that's an important point for businesses, isn't it? I mean, you've got to pay yourself. You're not doing it for love. As much as, you know, we say follow your passion, follow your dreams, it's still got to be viable. You've got to pay yourself. You've got to make a living. And I think that it's really important, as you mentioned, that the startups, there are so many people moving to the regions now. There is so much opportunity, and just taking those little steps to set the foundation is really going to put you in good stead for ongoing business success. And again, it's why it's fantastic having access to a mentor like Vicki in the North Burnett, Jason in the South, really, really valuable. So yeah, fantastic. All right. So,
and I suppose to go back on what you've just said, you know, paying yourself. If you're leaving a job that's paying you, you know, $50,000 or $60,000 or $70,000 a year, and you're going into a business that you don't know what you're actually going to earn or know when you can start paying yourself, how long can you last? You know, the reality is you've still got bills, you've still got mortgages, you've still got family, maybe, but at the end of the day, you've really got to be prepared for what extended period of time you'll be without that income for, and have you planned for that?
Wow, that's such a good, and that would be so reassuring for a business, you know, to know that, yeah, I'm safe. I can, well, as safe as can be. I'm good. I can make that transition from salary into business and be quite, you know.
Well, it takes a bit more stress out of it.
Sure.
Business and running a business is quite stressful.
Absolutely.
So if you can alleviate as much stress as possible, it's always a good point.
Yeah, fantastic.
The other thing is that a business can be turning over a lot of money, but still running at a loss.
Yeah.
So knowing the break-even point is helpful in deciding price setting, sales budgets, and preparing a business plan.
Yeah.
The break-even of your business includes sales volume, average production costs, and average sale prices. So that covers off on both points of whether you're making a widget or whether you're running a cafe, or how many coffees do I sell to even pay the barista behind that counter. You know, those types of things. But understanding where your break-even point is, you can work out how profitable your present product line is. So it's like understanding, I've got a girl behind the cafe coffee machine. I'm paying her $25 an hour. How many coffees an hour does she make, and what are those costs of that coffee? How many coffees do I need to make per hour to make her profitable? How far sales can decline before you start to incur losses. You know, if I've got a sales figure of 100 widgets, and all of a sudden I've got 50 widgets because of COVID or because of whatever issues arise.
Exporting
exactly. How does that sit with where my costs are going to be covered? So how many units you need to sell before you make a profit? So all of these things, how reducing price of volume of sales will impact on your profits. So again, going back to that, if I'm used to selling 100 widgets and I'm only selling 50, how does that impact the bottom line? How much of an increase in price or volume of sales you'll need to make up for that increase in fixed costs?
Well, that's interesting.
Because
I mean, I can see the rationality behind that, but would you, I don't know, if you've had to decrease the cost of what that unit is, you don't necessarily want to kind of double it to make that makeup, would you?
No. So this is where your fixed cost comes in. What area of your business or your expenses can you cut back on? And again, this is part of what all this means, is how do you decrease the cost factor of running that business? Now, we all know that staff are one of the most the heaviest component of our expenses. But can we decrease staff by 1, 2, 3? What does that mean to them as well? You know, there's so many implications behind how we determine where we need to go to actually then keep that company or keep that business alive. Because it's no good keeping staff on if you've got 3 or 4 staff and you need to get rid of one. You know, at the end of the day, you really have to sacrifice whatever those costs are, and it not necessarily be staff. It can be other running costs.
Other overheads and things like that.
Absolutely. You know, you might be able to downsize your building size, you know, and pay less rent.
That's it.
But it's understanding where those cost factors are to understand what you need to decrease by.
Absolutely.
You know, we've got a few terminologies here which we hear accountants use, and sometimes that can get a little bit intimidating when we're talking to our accountant as to what they say and how they use those words. Please don't feel intimidated. They love you to ask those questions because at the end of the day, they're there to give you information.
For sure.
So, you know, salaries, fixed costs, variable costs, financial break-even points, all of those things, EBIT, earnings before income tax.
Love an acronym.
So, you know, all of those things are places that you need to go to your accountant for and say, well, look, you know, what's the balance sheet? You know, I have been asked that by other businesses that have been in business for a very long time. They don't know how to read a balance sheet.
And it's okay.
It's totally okay.
Because why we're here.
And the thing is too that you get so busy doing what you do in business that we don't take the time to really understand what's happening within our business.
That's right.
We're just driving the business as best we can to cover the costs and earn a living.
Yeah.
And so some of these things are quite vital though.
And I think the great thing too in this day and age is don't know what a balance sheet is or don't have a good template. My word, there is a plethora of them everywhere. You know, good ones, not so good ones, but that's again where someone like yourself can say, look, this is what you need, simple to use, you know, it'll cover everything that your business needs or, you know, to the best of its ability.
One of the biggest questions here, at what point will I be able to draw a fair salary from my company or business? And again, this all comes back to what we're talking about today, you know, at what point does my business actually not just break even, but actually make a profit where I can draw a salary. And that's certainly not something that I can determine here.
No.
It's something that all of this you can go through with your accountant and work out where am I sitting now, what do I need to increase, what do I need to decrease to actually take even $500 a week out of my business, and at what point can I do that? So just be mindful. It may not happen it won't happen overnight, but you need to have a goal where that will happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And here we are. I've got a bit of an example because to determine your break-even point, you need to understand what are your fixed costs, what are your variable costs, and what is your gross profit, all of those things which are normally seen on a profit and loss. And if you've got a bookkeeper, your bookkeeper can actually print you off, and you should be doing this on at least, I think, a monthly, if not quarterly basis after your BAS returns are done. Print off what your profit and loss looks like so you keep a really close eye on some of those factors within your business. And again, understanding what are my fixed costs. Fixed costs are those things that don't fluctuate or vary.
Okay.
You've got direct employees' wages, superannuation, workers' compensation, insurance. Those types of things, and down the bottom here, your accounting, advertising, advertising can vary, and again, it is or isn't depending on your business. But advertising usually is an amount that you allocate per year to promote your business. That can be 1,000, 10,000, 5,000, whatever that is. Legal fees, they're usually a one-off cost. They're not something that go on. Motor vehicle expenses, again, that's more around what your payments may be. I'm paying $1,000 a month for this vehicle for the business. So really take a good hard look at what are my static costs or fixed costs to determine how I then work out what are those costs. Those costs actually lead back to exactly what we're talking about. What does it cost me to open my doors?
So would you say it's fair that those fixed costs are generally where you may be able to make some cost savings if required, or is it across the board?
Fixed costs are usually fixed.
Right.
It might be that your lease payments are $3,000 a month.
Okay.
You can't negotiate that. Okay, we've had a little bit of a time where COVID has seen that actually happen a little bit more able, but it's certainly not something that goes on. So fixed costs are something you need to look at.
Yes.
And can I do without them?
Yes.
But they are fixed.
So for example, like, your advertising, you're not going to go and spend $1 gazillion on a billboard if it
absolutely will throw you out of whack. If it's something you have allocated in your budget, so don't forget you need a budget, you need a cash flow forecast. So all of those things form part of where this comes from. Advertising, I've got $10,000 here, but it might be that you can only afford $1,000. And over time, don't forget that these costs need to be looked at on a regular basis to be able to trim them down or whatever. And coming back to what you're saying, fixed costs, yes, they are fixed, but at the end of the day, do inspect them regularly to find out if you can trim them. Some you will not be able to. They are just fixed. Variable costs are those that can be varied. Equipment hire, well, you don't need that. Tools, I don't need to buy $5,000 worth of tools this month or next month or whatever the case may be. Subcontractors, do I really need 2 subcontractors when I could do with one, you know? So working out what they are, this is just an example, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not something that's set in stone.
No, and so that's not a cookie cutter approach for all businesses.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You know, checklists to help you build your fixed costs, to knowing what they are, previous bills for the utilities and internet so that you can get an average price of what that might look like.
Yeah.
Bank statements to show regular payments and how you spend your money. Leasing costs, constant amounts that do not change, no regular costs. So it's really understanding what are those costs that don't change.
Yeah.
This also means loan repayments that pertain to the business or take from profits.
Okay.
So don't forget to include your loan payments.
Okay.
Some people do, but again, it's understanding as well that if you have a working relationship with your bookkeeper or your accountant, it's really getting them to go through that with you to understand what are those costs and breaking those down.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent.
So again, we come back to, you know, and this is just the knowledge you need to know. Even profitable business can fail if they don't know their cash flow or their break-even point. It's no good opening that front door or putting a shingle up, as you say, if you don't know that it's costing me $5,000 a month to open my door, and I've only got enough money to last me 1 month. You've got to really know that you've got a working capital is another terminology, and that's the money that's sitting there that you can draw on as a startup or as an ongoing business. You need working capital to be able to draw on for those unexpected items, even if it is fixed items. You've got, and again, we're coming back, watch the break-even point.
Yeah.
You know, if I've got $5,000 in the bank and my break-even point $6,000, you're already in trouble.
You don't want
No. So in fact, in your cash flow forecast, your stock control and stock costs, you know, again, I'll go through that a little bit later. Costs of running the business and profit margins, really need to keep a close eye on that.
Yeah.
How are your costs worked out and what profit will you make? You know, it's nothing unusual for me to see people come into my office who are so enlivened by the dream that they forget to work out, well, what's my cost on this item, service, whatever it is, and how much am I going to sell for to cover all of these things that I need to cover, your leasing, your power, your water rates charges, cost of goods. You know, the reality is that a lot of these people just don't know. They forget about that because that's the hard bits that they don't really want to concentrate on because it might dampen the dream.
I was going to say, is it a little bit like the old build it and they will come mentality? Open the doors and I'll be flooded and it's going to be...
Or I'm an ostrich and bury my head in the sand.
Oh, don't be an ostrich. Don't be an ostrich. You've got Vicki here. We're here to help.
You know, and check the cost price from suppliers regularly. You know, ensure your profit margins are still where they need to be because if you've reached a deal with your suppliers on service or on product, those suppliers can quite often put things up without you knowing.
Now, this is an interesting story. I think this might be a Vicki Leeson business example. But we talk about business quite a bit, obviously, and I think you were working in a service station or in a food supply outlet, and was it the box of frozen chips or something?
Yeah.
You know, the regular turnover of a service station staple food. May have had some on the way here, but you didn't you only realised after checking those invoices that they had increased the unit price of what you were buying them for without that then being reflected in the sale price. Yeah. So you've really got to, what do you do? Just go through those invoices?
Yeah, it's just be mindful of checking your invoices. It's all very well that we sometimes will tick off what we get coming in the shop. It might be 10 boxes of chips and 5 boxes of fish and, you know, 25 hamburger patties, whatever the case may be, but we're ticking off the quantities, but are we really going back and double checking on what we've been charged? Because in my case, I used to reach agreements because I would sell large quantities of a product. I would then go to the supplier and say, what sort of deal can you give me? And don't be afraid to do that as well in your businesses. You know, work out a deal of what it might be that they reach an agreement that they charge you. And I'm going to use the chips as an example. We reached an agreement on $20 a box, a 15-kilo box of chips, and that's a set price for a period of time. But if they don't tell me that that period of time has lapsed because they've had a price increase, they just automatically invoice me, or sometimes the girl who's made the invoice out hasn't realised there's been an agreement made. And so therefore all of a sudden I'm being charged $25 a box. Mm-hmm. Well, here we are on this slide, and what this is about, and there's links in here, so when you do get the slide presentation, you'll be able to click on those links. And this will actually show you why you need your income statements, and then that link below will take you to a government site where you can actually punch in your own numbers to give you what your break-even point is by using your gross margins and those fixed costs.
Okay.
So I haven't actually, I was going to click on these, but it's much easier to show you on the next slide, I think. Yeah. So here you can see that I'm comparing my income statement to my break-even point. So the income statement will come from you as the business owner and your bookkeeper, your accountant, or from your own system.
Right.
And as you can see, I've highlighted the colours as I did in the previous slide, where the green is your fixed costs,
yes,
and your yellow is your variable costs, and your blue are your gross margins or your profits.
Yep.
And as you can see on the right-hand side, your break-even point, this is what will come up on the screen once you go to that government website, which is the links below. And you can change those figures. I can't on this slide purely because it's for demonstration purposes, but once you get in there and have your own figures, you'll be able to change that. Now, one of the things that I get asked a lot is, how do I find out what my gross margin is? You know, that, whether your accountant can tell you that or whether you want to work that out yourself, but that's vital. As you can see, I've moved on to the link which was at the bottom of the previous screen. And now that link will take you to the Queensland Government site. Now, Queensland Government has, or even federal government, has lots and lots of areas you can visit to get information. This is just one of them. And they will actually help you calculate your break-even point with this interactive formula at the bottom here below. It goes through a few of the points which I've already covered on. Maybe something in there that you can pick up on as well that I haven't covered. So by all means, go and have a look in that site. It talks about your gross margins, your profit margins, financial advisors, all of those types of things. And again, this particular formula area here is what's interactive. Yep. And it's coming, we're going to be putting numbers in here, which is coming through from your profit and loss, and where you'll find these particular figures. And I'm referring back to that particular financial statement that I had in there before. Mm-hmm. Working out your gross profit margins, you'll be able to do that. You should be able to have that in your P&L, and your bookkeeper should be able to give you that particular figure if you can't work it out yourself. But then come through to this one, and your fixed costs. So I'm going to punch in here what the fixed costs were on that particular statement I had there before. Yeah, that was 42,000. And it was 42,900, so we'll back up this one to put in the 9, and we enter. Our gross profit margin in that particular one was actually 70%, so we changed that. And then as you can see, our break-even point is 61,000. Yep. Based on that number and based on that particular financial statement we had before, this particular business is able to cover its fixed costs. Okay. So that is a very quick way of actually showing you how to get that break-even point. Okay. If you scroll down, it actually will use the formula to calculate your contribution margins, which I'm not going to go into. They're a little bit
That's a whole nother
It
section.
is, and also the break-even point of your, any of those other items that you might have. If it's an actual widget,
Yes.
then it can help you find out how many units you actually need to sell to get your fixed cost on that. So this area here covers off on all of those things which I haven't covered off on, but still are very relevant to whatever industry you might be in.
That's really interesting.
So by all means, go to that, or click on the link and use that interactive formula process, and you will find out what your break-even point is.
That's so helpful, and that's just an easy. Get your data
numbers.
Yeah, get your data from that, punch it into here, calculate, and it's done.
Absolutely. That's all. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
You'll have the relevant information either from your P&L or your bookkeeper or your accountant, and just punch in the numbers.
Yeah, fantastic.
So, go for it.
So that link to that website is down in the comments. So jump on there and have a play, and you might be pleasantly surprised. Hopefully.
So you know your break-even point, so you know what the costs are to open your doors every day. Know what you need in income each day to just pay the bills. Know how much you must increase the turnover to pay yourself. We talked about that before. Are you actually getting paid? What happens if you need new equipment or new repairs done? Have you got a contingency plan or a backup in your cash flow to help with that, should that event arise?
And is there a rule of how much sort of, fat you should have in the budget? Because, like the printer might go, or the, like you say, a piece of equipment might break. Is there a rule of thumb of what sort of buffer you should have?
So that'll be those. Well, it'll depend on the business, If I've got a takeaway shop and my food is constantly being sold, I've constantly got profit coming in. Hopefully, if I've worked this all out right, I've got profit coming in. But if I've got a business that only sells, say, 10 large items every 3 months, then obviously the profit that's coming in is a lot more staggered or a lot more drawn out.
Yeah.
So it depends on the business. Look, the rule of thumb for me, if I'm going into let's just say it's a food business, I like to have a couple of months cash flow sitting there as my buffer. But again, that's knowing that I am a good food operator.
Yes.
If you're a very novice food operator and you don't know whether your customers are going to be coming in, or if it's a startup, you have no idea how many customers you're going to get. So there's a lot of varying factors. Don't want to get too bogged down with that, because I don't want to scare anybody, but it's really having a couple of months cash flow.
It's like benchmarking, really, isn't it? You've got to, have that security that you can test the waters and get your numbers, get that sort of
even keel.
And then you can sort of start.
And that's a bit what I was saying. What is the even keel? What do I need to have as a buffer? This business is my break-even point of this business is $5,000. So if I've got 2 lots of $5,000, I know then I can work out, well, how many of those widgets or how many coffees or how many cakes or how many customers am I going to require to bring in to start making profit? So there is a little bit of, factoring there and manipulation, but again, it's speaking to those professionals that you've got on board to assist you in determining that. I say this a lot, don't be frustrated at the end of the week wondering where your money went to or how to pay those bills. That's one of the most stressful parts of owning a business. We don't have that regular weekly income anymore coming in, so therefore how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to know how much turnover I'm going to need or have to have? So it's really understanding, how do I find that out and how do I make that happen? I suppose that brings us to the conclusion for today. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and just know that we are here to help anytime. And if you'd like to book an appointment, then call the number below. But I'd also like to note it's always advisable to speak to your accountant or your professionals to get individual advice for circumstances, because as I've been going through, there's many variables in many different types of business. So it's really speaking to those people with a little bit more knowledge on what it is you need to ask. And if that means just making a call to one of us, then by all means do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, there's so many great local resources within our communities. You know, you've got your chambers of commerce, you've got your progress societies. There are people who know, you know, the region and what's come before you, and you know, they're just such a great resource pool to tap into.
So the other thing you just mentioned there, you know, we haven't reinvented a wheel. Don't reinvent a wheel. You know, if the wheel's already out there and you can align yourself with people who can assist or has been through it before, then you can always learn from somebody. None of us know everything.
No.
And you know, to think we do is very naive.
Yeah.
So please, you know, seek out those people who can give you a better foot in your business to help you pay yourself. That's one of the things I can't stress enough. How do you pay yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, because why would you be wanting to?
Absolutely. And I do see that, you know. I will be mindful there in saying that some people have the dream, they get into business and they're going in the motion, and all of a sudden they realise, oh my goodness, this isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought this was going to be so much better.
Yeah.
And no shame in that. And that's why I do offer a little bit of advice as well around either selling the business, which I do have another seminar coming up on that, or what do I need to do to get out of this business. So, you know, there's a little bit of information around how do I start a new lease, or how do I end a lease, or how do I back out of this business. And again, no shame in that.
Absolutely.
It's just a discovery, it's a journey.
Absolutely not. I mean, there's so many. You've got to go through. It's a journey. It is a journey, and you know, you'd rather. I personally believe you would rather want to have a go and go, not for me. Reverse. Then be wondering, or be stuck in a situation that you're not happy or you're not enjoying. You know,
not good for the family.
No.
You know, I have a saying: you better to have tried and lost than to have never tried and wondered.
Absolutely.
Because you would hate to get to, you know, old age and think, well, what would have happened if I'd have started that business or had that go? I don't advocate for taking huge risks. If it means detriment to the family or detriment to your situation. But, you know, you have to judge those risks and judge your passion. Yeah. But again, no shame in discovering that it's not for you, because it isn't for everybody.
No, that's right. And I guess too, going back to the service that is available for free, this service, Business Lead, the support there is for pretty much anyone. Yes. At any stage of their business journey. Absolutely. So I could be sitting here going, you know what, I love widgets. I want to build widgets. I want to sell millions of widgets. I can come to you and say, here's my widget plan, and we can work that out. Or I could be 20 years down the business track of, you know what, I'm done with widgets. I don't want to see another widget in my life. How do I then prepare my business, not only for me to get the most out of it, but to make sure that business can remain in our region and remain a viable, succession into a new generation of business owners, because the last thing that we want to see is businesses fold.
Yes.
We want to see them grow. We want to see them change. We want to see them diversify. And that's what this program is all about. So it doesn't matter where you sit in your business journey, you can access support for free.
Yeah.
Free. Unbelievable. So thank you to the federal government. Thank you to North Burnett Regional Council. And thanks, Vicki, so much for demystifying the break-even point.
Yeah.
And if businesses are sort of feeling a bit, I'm not really sure, how to delve into this. They just need to really pick up the phone and
Absolutely.
and just
It's just a question.
Yeah.
It really is just a question. And as I pointed out today, there's lots of people in business who have been in business for a long time and they still don't really know how to do this.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because they don't know, it's because they probably haven't given it a thought.
Yeah.
When you really get down to it, it's not that hard to work out, but it's really, am I actually keeping abreast of what my business is doing?
Yeah.
And again, I come back to that point, your costs and your sell price, it all's reflected in that.
Yeah.
So be mindful.
And with that, if you are a service delivery business, is it the same sort of approach?
Yeah, you've still got to have the cost. What it costs to run that service or offer that service, and what am I expecting out of that at the end to get a sale price? There's it doesn't matter what the business is. There's always a cost of running that service, that business, that opportunity, whatever it is. There's a cost involved. And it's just working out the costs as opposed to the sell price and what's in between.
Yeah. And just going back to, the income statements and those tools and resources, they're not complicated. They're not, I wouldn't be thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to take me weeks to come together. It's really an Excel spreadsheet,
Absolutely.
a few free templates that you can find online, and just
Well, it's not even that. Everybody, 99% of people in a business that would want to work out this are doing their BAS returns.
Right.
You either have an accountant doing that, you have a bookkeeper doing that, or you have yourself. And you can actually push a button and get a profit and loss from what that looks like to actually give you an idea of where to start to look for that. And so it's just really that simple.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, thanks again for watching. Again, last few minutes, if you've got any questions, comments, or even topics, other small business topics that you want Vicki to touch on in future sessions, drop it in the comments below. Let us capture that. Feel free to reach out and give Vicki a call at Business Leap. The phone number 1300 249 482, or you can always call BIEDO on 0400 695 456. I think I would have that off in memory, but no. So thanks again for watching. Vicki, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge. It's amazing, and we're really grateful to have this service in our region. And like anything, if people don't know it's there, they can't access it, they can't ask the question, and this is a service we want to see remain in the Burnett Inland to help as many small businesses either start, scale, grow, take their business to new heights. And I think we are really on the precipice of some exciting, developments in the tech space and in the business landscape. So, yes, absolutely pick up the phone, give Vicki a call, have a chat, and
check out our websites, because we have events coming up and learning opportunities for you out there. So, check out our Business Leap pages and BIEDO pages to find out when those next opportunities are coming up.
There are so many events coming up, and we try and keep them as either free or as cost effective as possible. So be sure to jump online and have a look at those. So
thank you so much.
Thanks, Vicki.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
And taking care of business.